earliest fond childhood memories I recall distinctly invariably has animals in them. Like this time when I had just spotted the giraffe at Mysore Zoo and I threw a tantrum, insisting that I would leave the zoo only if my parents would bring the giraffe home. Or this other time when I had gone to a farm and my mother found me clutching a lamb close to my heart, begging to take her home. Indeed, that is me. This was a routine experience, me stomping my foot, demanding to take home any animal that I would find, and my mother tweaking my ears and dragging me home. Many years later, I was talking to someone at the dental college that I work in, and she happened to say, "She is also crazy like you." For a second, I was taken aback, wondering what I did that led her to make an observation like that. And then she added, "Crazy about animals, I mean." Over the years, I have encountered similar such conversations that indicate that I am perhaps slightly different from the rest, and that is just putting it kindly. So now it is pretty much established that I am an animal person, and I've always been. This love for animals that I nurtured naturally progressed to rescuing them whenever I found them ill, injured, or distressed. Many times, a common experience for animal rescuers who are trying to catch an injured animal is that invariably there is an audience. Some of them genuinely try to help. Others will come and ask, "Is that yours?" Initially, I would find this very annoying and I would get tempted to respond with a retort. But gradually, I have come to understand where this is coming from. They are coming from a place where they believe that one would help an animal only if it belongs to them. Otherwise, what is the point really? It wouldn't end at that. Some would even mutter, "So many humans suffering, and these people waste their time on animals." I have come to accept that there is a fundamental reason behind this thinking. Not all of us see animals. Yeah, sure, we see them, but yet we do not see them. At most, they occupy space on our roads, our footpaths, sometimes causing a disturbance, a delay, just a tiny little detail in our hurried lives that needs no special recognition, attention, and acknowledgement. This is largely due to the phenomenon called as conditioning. If you look at science textbooks in the Indian primary education system, when introducing the animal kingdom, they are classified as living beings. It then goes on to talk about how animals are useful to humans. This commodifying of animals begins very early, where we begin to expect the utility quotient of animals, thereby indirectly equating them to objects or things. While they may still be classified as living beings, they are still referred to as it. Perhaps a relook at our Indian school curriculum is much needed, where the concept of animal welfare must be included in the syllabus to emphasize the fact that animals are sentient beings, capable of so much more than we give them credit for. They are living, feeling, and thinking beings. And I've experienced their magic firsthand. It is not just me. There are many who are crazy like me, crazy about animals, I mean. There is a foolproof method to identify us. If there is a movie with an animal character in it, we are the same people who are not really as worried about what happens to the human characters. But if the animal gets even a little hurt, then there's a lot of tears involved. And just in case the animal dies, we'll be crying for days. Some of us have always been like this, but I believe that almost all of us have the capacity to do the same. We are just unaware and just one experience away from becoming animal people. Sometimes it could be a pet that awakens this side of us, a stray kitten that walks into our house on a rainy evening, or even a bird that is singing outside our balcony every day, who we eventually start connecting with. It is only a matter of observation when we actually see them for exactly who they are. When we set our worries and our busyness aside and just notice them, we can see them by the side of the bakery, trying to catch someone's eye, trying to convince them to throw them a morsel or two their way. And trust me, they're immensely intelligent beings. How else can they survive on the street? They are observing us, watching us, and noticing us. Like the other day, I had this beautiful experience. I was standing alone in the dark hours of the early morning, waiting for my friends. There was not a soul in sight, and I was beginning to feel a little anxious. And then, a dog on the opposite side of the road caught my eye. I had no food on me. I did not even call out for him. We just made eye contact. And this dog crossed the road, came straight to where I was. Of course, now I said hello. I admit I'm a bit more well-mannered with my animal friends. So the dog sat with me with zero expectations, and I found this odd sense of comfort on that lonely, dark morning with a dog who I had never seen before. This is not a singular experience that I have had. Many times I have found solace and comfort in the company of animals. That is the reason I have chosen this path of animal welfare instead of only pursuing what I have been trained for professionally. So when I heard about this organization called Charlie's Animal Rescue Center, founded by Ms. Sudha Narayanan in 2013 in my city, I decided to pay a little visit. And I never left. Today, the organization has become an integral part of who I am, and I would have it no other way. CARE is an animal rescue and shelter that has over 300 animals living on its premises at any given point of time. The main focus at CARE is providing life-saving veterinary care to all street animals who need it, irrespective of their ownership status, on par with private veterinary care setups. When we have a pet who lives with us, we leave no stone unturned to give them the best quality of care, which is a good thing, no doubt. However, our street animals do not receive the same. The ability to feel pain and suffering is the same, but it is not acknowledged to and responded to with the same amount of concern. At CARE, we want to change that. We want to ensure that no animal is left behind for any reason whatsoever. There are times when our hearts break at what we witness on the OPD table that could have been completely avoided had only the animal been spotted and reported earlier. There is a systematic process followed at CARE. We have a helpline where we receive calls requesting help and assistance for animals by citizens. We have 3 ambulances that then go out to bring these animals to the shelter from different localities. The animals are then brought to our trauma care facility where they are diagnosed and treated by our vets. Our inpatient unit could house 30 dogs only in 2013. Today, it houses 70 dogs at any given point of time. We also have an exclusive cat treatment unit and a neonatal unit for orphan puppies and kittens who wouldn't see the dawn of a new day without round-the-clock care. In the shelter area, we have about 100 old, blind, paralyzed, and other differently abled animals living their lives with peace and dignity. What started off with rescuing dogs and cats mainly eventually expanded to include many other species like ducks, pigs, rabbits, guinea pigs, turkeys, so many of them. It has been 8 years of rescuing animals, and we have grown from strength to strength. I say it with great pride and a certain sense of fulfillment that as an organization, the number of animal lives saved with every year of our existence has only multiplied. The entire CARE team of vets, animal care officers, attenders, and volunteers deserve full credit for making this happen. From being nobody's animals, they become our animals. Having said that, our work is far from over. We receive hundreds of calls every day requesting assistance, and no matter how hard we try to accommodate as many as we can, there is an inevitable space crunch. It is heartbreaking to see that we have all the resources to save the life of an animal, except in some circumstances, the space available is not sufficient. To circumvent this issue, we decided to to take up an expansion project called Care for More, where we are raising funds to double our capacity of intake. The construction is underway, and we hope to save more lives going forward. After all that has been said, it could be easy to say that we rescue animals. But honestly, in most circumstances, it is the other way around. As an attestation to this fact, let me tell you the story of Charlie, the Charlie in Charlie's Animal Rescue Center. Charlie was born on the streets of Bangalore in the year 2002. One unfortunate rainy afternoon, a few weeks after he was born, he was run over by a car. Fortunately, the car was being driven by a responsible, compassionate person who saw the puppy. He didn't choose to drive away. He chose to take responsibility of his actions and rush the puppy to an animal shelter called Cupa. The puppy was barely a few weeks old, was injured severely, and was losing a lot of blood. Once at the OPD, the vets were taking a call on what line of treatment to take. It seemed hopeless at the time, and even euthanasia was being considered. However, Charlie looked at them with his big puppy eyes, and it seemed like he was speaking to them. They decided to put in all the efforts to save his life, and they eventually did, but they couldn't save his leg. His right hind leg was completely crushed beyond any hope, and so after a long surgery, Charlie woke up missing a leg, but with his life intact. Little did anybody know at that point of time the size of the impact this little three-legged puppy was going to have on the lives of thousands of animals and humans. Charlie grew up in the shelter, becoming notorious for his naughty ways. He was known to be quite the troublemaker, always up to mischief, bothering anybody he did not catch a fancy to for any reason he deemed fit. There was even a strike called for by the sanitation staff. Tie up Charlie or else we will not pick up any waste. Such was his reputation. One day changed all of that. Children from a school for the differently abled had visited the shelter. A few minutes into the visit, there was a circle of children, and right in the middle of this circle was Charlie. The children were very excited and they were poking and prodding Charlie, and Charlie was sitting there, very gentle and calm, absorbing the energy of these children and astounding everyone at the shelter with this new side to his personality. This incident set off his career as a therapy dog, and he began to visit schools with differently abled children along with his mum and our founder, Miss Sudha. Charlie dedicated many years of his life to spending time with them that helped them develop their motor skills, communication, and memory skills. There is an incident that particularly gave me goosebumps when I heard it for the first time. It was a routine therapy session. There was this one particular child who had speech difficulties and had never really spoken a single word until that morning. The first word he ever said in his life was Charlie. At first, nobody believed it actually happened. But then he repeated it again and again. All the adults present that day in the room were in tears, except for Charlie and the little boy, who were completely oblivious to what the fuss was all about. Such was Charlie's impact. He continued to make a difference to hundreds of children until eventually he retired, making history by perhaps becoming the first indie, non-pedigree dog to be a therapy dog. Unfortunately, Charlie passed away on 2nd March 2017. His legacy continues, and the baton is now carried forward by our other shelter dogs. And so, now you know why we call our organization Charlie's Animal Rescue Center. If you walk into our shelter, there is a sense of peace that will engulf you, along with the 300 plus animals who call it their home. There are many times we see visitors who come in every now and then, just sitting there, absorbing the love our animals shower them with. When COVID hit us, along with the rest of the world, we faced a very unique challenge. We had to continue to care for our animals no matter what. Some of our staff offered to stay back at the shelter, keeping the situation in mind. So we had to exercise utmost caution to keep our animals and staff safe while we continue to rescue animals from the street. With a lot of misinformation, especially towards the beginning of the pandemic, many people began to abandon their pets, like Honey Bun. So Honey Bun was found tied to the gates of the veterinary hospital a few days into the lockdown with an old rag tied around her abdomen. When we removed the rag, we found a huge, nasty open wound. The wound healed, and so did Honey Bun. Today, she lounges around at the shelter, waiting for her food and treats. There were many such instances, and our phones were ringing off the hook. Animals on the street were starving as they were cut off from their daily source of food. With no visitors, our adoption rates dropped. There was no time to sit and ruminate. It was all hands on deck, even while following strict safety norms. But every cloud has a silver lining. A positive spin-off was that many citizens began to notice the starving animals and started to feed them. Eventually, we began to supply food to a huge network of citizen volunteers distributed all across the city. Donors helped by contributing towards the food costs. Our ambulances would then set out in all 4 directions feeding animals and also distributing dog food kits to citizen volunteers. It was a wonderful system that lasted for more than a year. We fed more than 1,000 animals this way. Our team then began to do virtual adoptions. It worked like magic. People had become more aware, and the pandemic seemed to have awakened their compassionate side. Many of them chose to adopt and add a pet to their family. We were beyond thrilled. It is still a long uphill battle, and we have to continue to do this for our community animals. This is their world as much as it is ours. This world of animals is a beautiful one, and one can only experience it to understand it in its full essence and glory. Animals are wonderful, magical creatures, like unicorns. They may seem invisible, but for those of us who see them, it is a marvelous feeling. We need to see them for who they are, and once we do that, our lives are never the same again. So the next time you see an animal, I urge you all to notice them, to look into their eyes, to see them as living beings, as a he and a she, and not an it. The results are life-changing. Thank you very much.